What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, Joker back again once again, and today, people, Destiny PvP. The shit show, gift. Yes, gift will work nicely. That keeps on giving. You know, there was once a time coming out of Destiny 1, going into Destiny 2, that I thought PvP could be competitive. I know, I don't know what had... I don't know what had come over me. It was deranged, right? But no, going into Destiny 2 after Destiny 1, this was before the Destiny 2 beta. This was more when Destiny 2 was a pie-in-the-sky idea, not a life-altering reality. But, you know, as they say, all dreams die when the dreamer wakes. Every last one of them, without exception. And then the Destiny 2 beta dropped, to quickly disabuse me of any belief that Destiny 2 could be competitive.
But Joker, you have lots of videos talking about how Destiny 2 could be competitive.
Oh, right you are, oh contrarian commenter of contrarian comments. I should clarify. I wasn't disabused of the potential or the possibility that if, and I mean if, like Sparta, if anyone at Bungie actually gave two shits and a fuck about PvP, it would be competitive. I was disabused of the idea that anybody working at Bungie even understood the meaning of the term competitive multiplayer. But as most, if not all of you will know, my opinion on Destiny 2 has gone from, wow, this is a really, really special universe. This could be the next Final Fantasy XIV with a PvP mode that rivals the Halo of old, if Bungie cared. 2. Destiny is trash, but so am I. Destiny is junk food, and overpriced junk food at that. Junk food that never quite satiates, and junk food that's starting to leave a bad taste in many people's mouth. But hey, sometimes you get a bad bag of chips. And you know what? Maybe, just maybe, Destiny is a shit game, but at least it's our shit game. And with junk food, variety is the spice of life. The same thing applies to Destiny. I think we can all agree that anything and everything grows stagnant with copy and paste repetition. This is true for both PvE and PvP in Destiny. Just like the same type of horde mode grows boring the more you play it, PvP grows dull and repetitive when all you ever do is see relatively the same thing, play out relatively the same exact way, over and over and over again. Cool weapons, crazy builds, that's what Destiny is about. Sure, the matchmaking can get so sweaty it feels like you're either getting blown out or playing the final game in a 50 grand tournament, but you also have fun games, casual games, because you're not playing Trials of Osiris or Survival, where Destiny pretends it's even remotely competitive. Most people just stick to playing random pickup games of Control, Clash, and Rumble. This connection-based variety of gaming, when Bungie is not fucking with the matchmaking settings by trying to introduce skill-based matchmaking or lobby balancing, leads to this magical thing that every developer wants their player to experience: flow state. What is flow state, you ask, oh contrarian commenter of contrarian comments? Flow state, also known as being in the zone, is the mental state in which a person performing some activity is fully immersed in the feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of the activity. If something is too easy, people get bored. If something's too hard, guess what? People also get bored. But on top of that, people also get anxiety and begin to task. Connection-based matchmaking allows for variety, and variety allows for easy games, hard games, close games, and games that are total blowouts one way or another. True variety in matchmaking is how you achieve this flow state. However, Bungie doesn't seem to understand this. Or more likely, they believe that there is this untapped market of casual players they believe they can milk. See, for Bungie, it's not enough that PvP can go years without updates. Oh, no. It's not enough that things like, I don't know, classy restoration, not having a PvP kill switch, or that PvP has been in a constant state of flux for years. With Bungie's attempt to hard shift the meta, something that really could only be solved by new maps, but nerfing our favorite toys into the ground is also an option, and it's probably easier. I mean, they nerfed every class back in December of 2021, and we've just been waiting on them to roll out all the new subclasses. After all, I'm sure they weren't all done when Witch Queen was released, and that Bungie would never do something like, I don't know, hold them back as an excuse to get players to come back every season. PvP balance be damned. It also doesn't help that Bungie has doubled down on a horrible in-air accuracy system, a system designed from the ground up to protect worse players from, you know, people who can jump and shoot. Well, don't worry, if you thought PvP was miserable due to balance issues, or Bungie's consistent neglect, or their consistent attempt to remove the already non-existent skill gap, if you believe that we're only one season away from fixing PvP, and PvP being in a golden age where anything is possible, just remember the old adage, man plans and God laughs. Starting in Season 18, we will be introducing some changes to how we play matchmaking in Crucible. This will be the first iteration that is part of a larger plan going through Season 19. Our world system teams are leading the charge on this transition, and we are here with a big info dump on what to expect. Well, at least you've got to hand it to Bungie. They know that this next season of PvP is going to be a shit show. And, at the very least, have the decency to say it up front. I mean, sure, they dress it up in platitudes and corporate speak, but first iteration and a larger plan going through Season 19 roughly translates from corporate bullshit to common as, we're going to throw shit against a wall until it sticks, or the wall breaks. However, and I may have buried the lead on this, wink wink nudge nudge, Bungie's plan to fix PvP isn't anything new. We are starting by implementing loose skill-based matchmaking to the control playlist at the start of Season 18. Loose skill-based matchmaking has a wider starting skill similarity than survival, and should result in matchmaking with a wider variety of players, while also eliminating some of the frustrations we see in our current system. Expect loose skill-based matchmaking to expand to other playlists in future seasons, as we tune what we consider a high-quality match by gathering real data and feedback from you. We are not planning to add it to every match-made playlist. We will continue tuning until we are in a good place. We will report tuning updates regularly. We will be implementing a form of Fireteam-sized preferred matchmaking in Season 19. Yeah, don't let Bungie bullshit you into thinking that this time, this specific iteration and or time, they have skill-based matchmaking finally figured out and it is going to work. They have no clue what they're doing. If they did, we wouldn't need iteration after iteration after iteration throughout an entire season and beyond. Now, how do those skill numbers actually play out in-game? Here's a good shorthand we use internally. If somebody is 200 skill above you, you can definitely tell they are better than you, and 70% of engagements against you. The opposite is true if somebody is 200 or more below you. By the time you get to a difference of 400, the better player is going to win 90% of engagements, and the lower skilled player needs to get extremely lucky to pull off the win. Once you get to a difference of 600, there is basically zero chance for the lower skilled player to ever win a 1v1 conflict. Oh, put a pin in that 1v1 comment, we will come back to it. Engagements should be fairer the closer you are to the same skill. This is our goal. Except, Destiny isn't a series of 1v1 engagements. Bungie would then go on to explain their criteria for what equates to skill. Internally, skill is a combination of stats made up of your performance. Kills, deaths, captures, rounds won, revives, dunks, etc. that ranks you against other players in the match. Each player's skill is compared against the skill of the other players in the match. And we make adjustments for all players at the end of a match where the two rankings differ. In addition to the stats mentioned above, skill encompasses all sorts of things. Your reaction time / agility, how you approach fights, how well you know maps / modes, how well you know your character, how you build your character, the weapons, armor, and mods you use, and how you blend all of those into a performance with other players. So yes, some of these parameters make sense, but I'm also guessing anybody with a working brainstem can kinda see the inherent issue here. A lot of these things are kinda sort of arbitrary. What weapons, armor, and mods, for example, does Bungie qualify as skillful? Is like Austringer at a 1, Last Word at a 5, some no-name blue pulse rifle at an 11 out of 10? Does having triple 100s on my armor change the way the algorithm views my character's skill? Or does having less god-rolled armor change the way that the algorithm views my character's skill? Does the game suddenly drop me 87 skill points if I throw on all blues and remove my mods? If so, I guess Destiny Item Manager's loadout feature is going to be getting a lot of use. Or did Bungie just juxtapose these two paragraphs together to make it look like their system considers more things than their system is actually capable of considering? Because a lot of this criteria would innately have arbitrary value based purely on what the developer believes their value is. I don't know if you've seen Bungie devs play PvP, or if you've read a balance pass in the last 5 years. But this is the same development team where we got, I really don't know the intrinsic value of freezing someone in a movement-based game. So we already have a system with bias and imperfections. But to be fair, this was clear from the start. Bungie has already admitted that this system is flawed and will need consistent tuning throughout the entirety of Season 18 going into Season 19. Also, skill-based matchmaking is a system they've attempted to use many times before, and it's never worked. I don't think I'm really saying anything anyone can object to, but let's not let imperfection be the enemy of good or good enough. So skill-based matchmaking's goal is to make matches as competitive as possible. However, adversely and more importantly, skill-based matchmaking also makes games as boring and stagnant as possible. Now your gut reaction to that might be something along the lines of,
But Joker, if all skill-based matchmaking does is make people on the same skill level fight one another, how is that bad?
And I can certainly see how this is an enticing train of thought, more so if you're a really bad player. It's a thought process that goes right along with the common catch-22 of,
But Joker, the reason good players don't want skill-based matchmaking is because they only want to stomp bad players.
because, according to the internet, apparently there's no such thing as nuance or in between. And you know what? I'm not going to speak for everyone out there. I'm sure there are people who find enjoyment from stomping casual players, just like psychopaths find enjoyment from, pulling the wings off butterflies. In my opinion, this argument that good players just want to beat up bad players is superficial at best, because it removes a lot of the nuance from everyday life, and boils PvP down to this equation where games are only ever 1v1, like I'm playing Mortal Kombat or Tekken or Street Fighter. But here's the reality. When you implement skill-based matchmaking, what you've said is you don't want cross-pollination of your player population. In fact, you're actively segregating everyone on arbitrary lines. You're not giving players more agency, you're giving them less. You're putting them in these little boxes and punishing them anytime they dare to diverge. The air quote, mythical MLG level pro player, that is the 0.00001% of the population, who's actually in every game at all times, stomping the shit out of every bronze player simultaneously, like the absolute fucking Giga Chad they are, even though that's statistically impossible, is no longer allowed to play with their lesser friends and family, because no one is going to have fun in that situation. Even when you account for skill-based matchmaking trying to draw an average, what you have is an MLG level player bringing mid-level players into games they have no business being in the first place. At least according to the system. It's a mandatory awful experience for everybody involved. But I mean, the Destiny community knows exactly what about playing with friends? Come on, friends in a co-op shooter MMO thing? Psh, who does that? But you know what? I've been harping on skill-based matchmaking, so let's go ahead and take a step back and talk about where skill-based matching does work. Because this silly little thing called nuance. Not everything is bad. Gasp, shock, horror, lightning crackle, lightning crackle, lightning crackle at all times. And good tools can be used in dumb ways. The first place I think it's fairly obvious that skill-based matchmaking shines is in a competitive multiplayer ranked setting. The entire point of a ranked setting is to see who's better or worse. Bonus points if there's loot to incentivize this. But then we have the other place that skill-based matchmaking flourishes, as an opt-in option. Bonus points if there's a loot to incentivize this. But then we have the other place where skill-based matchmaking is generally really good, and that's as an opt-in feature. See, skill-based matchmaking fundamentally comes with a lot of drawbacks. For starters, when you implement skill-based matchmaking, you're basically taking both sides of the bell curve and saying, well, you get to wait. And with Destiny 2 being a peer-to-peer game, it's more like, well, you get the privilege of waiting for skill-based matchmaking to take 5 to 10 minutes to find the laggiest game imaginable. Because say there's 1,000 top players, As the season goes on, that pool will dwindle from 1,000 to 700 to 500, and even with people coming in and going and replacing one another, you still have a diminishing return, because players in general are diminishing returns. So for one reason or another, the player population leaves the game. This leaves your remaining player population, at least anybody who isn't in the middle of the bell curve, to have less and less player population to pair off with and against. And this says nothing about bad players who will be put into rankings maybe above their station simply to fill a spot because of the diminishing player population. The reality is Bungie knows all this. They've said as much. They just seem to believe if they iterate on the system enough, that maybe, just maybe, through hopes and dreams and prayers, that this time it'll work. However, mandatory skill-based matchmaking is not the solution. I believe in giving players agency. What do I mean? Well, close your eyes and imagine with me if you will. Actually, wait, no, you don't have to. See, in Halo Reach, you could load up matchmaking, go under the playlist selection, and select search restrictions. If you clicked on the options menu, you could select good connection, language, or skill. The game even warned you that changing your preference from default would slow matchmaking times down. Now this is actual player empowerment. If you go back to my example of the good player playing with their friends and family, when you force skill-based matchmaking, all you get is a series of bad games for everybody involved. Why should that be the standard? Skill-based matchmaking has a lot of drawbacks, namely lag and long wait times, which only get worse and worse as seasons and years go on. So why should, for segments of the player base, lag and long wait times be mandatory? That doesn't seem fair. You would think that people who actually want skill-based matchmaking should have to suffer the consequences of skill-based matchmaking. So instead of making skill-based matchmaking mandatory, make it opt-in. And making skill-based matchmaking opt-in or creating an entirely separate ranked playlist that mirrors your social playlist is the only way to make skill-based matchmaking work. Because here is the penultimate reality. Here is the let's be real, let's be honest, let's be real honest moment of the video. Skill-based matchmaking has come and gone in Destiny several times. Why is that? Well, one, because it has tons of issues. The latest and greatest iteration is only going to be an iteration, and one that they admit will take 3 months, if not longer, to hopefully tune. What will inevitably happen is streamers and YouTubers in the top 30% of the player base will get annoyed about being punished for being good players, just so Bungie can cater to a group of people who are too lazy to be bothered to learn how to play the game. Or at least that'll be the perception. And you can call that entitlement all you want, but what happens the moment Bungie wants to make its free marketing division happy? Well, your skill-based matchmaking is gone. So why are we settling for a half measure that'll be thrown out the window the second Bungie wants good press? Why not, I don't know, push for Bungie to make skill-based matchmaking an opt-in feature? That way, everyone wins. People who wants it, just go and click on it. People who don't want it, don't. That or a proper ranked playlist are the only real solutions. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. We have t-shirts. Check out the link for that in the description below. But above all else, stay frosty.